Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Sheldon McCormick, CEO of Communitech. And let me say it's great to welcome you all to Communitech, and it's great to welcome you to Waterloo Region. This is a community that has proven time and time again that you can build something world-class right here. It's a region where collaboration is in our DNA. We have a deep bench of experts who show up and work together and get things done in this region. It's one of the reasons I'm excited and very grateful to have the opportunity to lead Communitech and help to usher in the next era of tech success in Waterloo Region. Now, I have been in this role for about 60 days. In that time, I can say I've seen firsthand just how fast things are moving with respect to artificial intelligence. Every founder that I speak to is thinking about it. Every team is experimenting. They are adapting and they're rethinking what's possible. The pace of change with respect to artificial intelligence is impossible to ignore. AI is changing the playbook for how companies are built and the tools that are being used and the decisions that are being made. And at the same time, I would say that it's raising the bar for what it takes to grow and to compete. And that is why today's announcement really matters. It's about making sure that the right infrastructure is in place for responsible innovation. Today in our local tech community, leaders are asking smart and urgent questions. Where does my data live? Who controls it? How quickly we move with AI really matters, but we can't lose sight of doing so with privacy, safety, and public trust. And how we answer critical questions with respect to these things will shape not just the companies that we build, but also the digital future that is built all around us. So there's much potential in this moment, but also a responsibility to get it right. And so I want to thank Minister Lecce and the Government of Ontario for being here today at Communitech and for continuing to engage the folks who are doing the work of innovation on the ground. And I'll now welcome Minister Lecce for a few words.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be back at this amazing place. I want to thank you, welcome you, 60 days of the job. I'm like 70 days of the job in the Ministry of Mines, so I know the feeling of being the new guy, but we've got an amazing parliamentary team who's joined us today, and I just want to give them a shout out. Obviously, Sam Oosterhoff, the Associate Minister, I want to thank him, of course, for his leadership, particularly on energy-intensive space. This has been an area of focus for him. I want to thank our local MPP who's hosting us, one of the regional local MPPs, Brian Riddell, thank you, as well as MPP Matthew Rae, both in Cambridge, Perth, Wellington. These two gentlemen are working very hard, fighting for good jobs, and really working with us in government to plan ahead, build for the future, and attract investment. I want to give a thanks to Rudy Cazzetto, who's been an incredibly positive partner in the ministry, working on building our large-scale energy generation so that we have the power for the businesses coming to this region. I also want to congratulate Joseph, newly elected, also a new guy on the job, fresh off 2025 election, and someone who's been working incredibly hard in the early days of this legislature, again, working to advance common sense economic policy in Canada and really fighting for more jobs for his region and for all Ontarians. And so we've got a great team. We've got our chair with us, our regional chair, mayors, leaders, civil society, economic development, chambers of commerce. We have Dave Smith with us as well, I should mention, who's also the parliamentary assistant in the ministry, who's someone who worked in mining and has a great area of expertise in energy. Together, we are working together just on the margins of Canada Day to really harness our economic potential and protect our data sovereignty here in Canada. And that's why it's really fitting we're here as we think about the world, our national security, our economy, and we think well outside our borders. And this is about energy. At the crux of our challenge is we need more clean, affordable power. It's about infrastructure, it's about data, and it's about the choices we're going to make as Canadians that are going to shape how we secure, competitive, self-reliant, and become more self-reliant for decades to come and for the generations we will leave behind. And that's really why we're here. At the heart of innovation at Communitech that has been at the forefront of leading solutions to some of the great challenges of the world. At the onset of these trying times, this uncertainty in the world, our Premier, Doug Ford, has really stepped up with a clear vision, not just to lead, but to power our economy, but to protect it. And with the demand for data and AI and cloud computing growing at unprecedented speed, we have a responsibility to ensure Ontario's energy system is strong, it is reliable, and it really works in the interest of Canada. And it's really more than just the megawatts, the electricity. It's about how we as a province, it's about who we are as a province and who we are as a country. And it's about making sure that as Ontario grows, we grow in a way that defends those values, safeguards our data, and puts our families, our workers, our taxpayers first. And today we're starting a meaningful step forward. We're taking this meaningful step forward to secure our future. Ontario's economy is growing. Our digital infrastructure is expanding. We see that live and well here in KW. But across almost every sector, the demand for data is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. And that brings opportunity, yes, but it also brings new challenges. Data centers are no longer just about tech infrastructure. They are critical assets, essential to our economy, to public service, and to the safety and security of Canadians. And as demand for AI and cloud computing and digital services explodes, we're seeing dozens of data centers lining up to connect to Ontario's electricity grid. That represents, just before the province today, 6,500 megawatts of prospective demand. That is the equivalent of almost 30% of our entire peak electricity load. That's like a nuclear plant the size of Bruce Power. That's like 3+ Pickerings or 1.5 Darlingtons. I mean, this is a massive amount of power that is before the province. And as Minister Oosterhoff knows so well, the electricity demand in our industrial sector is expected to grow by 58% by 2035 alone. So this is not a distant issue. It's really happening before our eyes as we speak. Under the current system, the current law, there really is no mechanism to manage this. Utilities are required by law to connect every large data center or large industrial load that applies to the grid without discrimination, regardless of how much energy they consume, how many jobs they create, or whether they support Ontario's broader economic interests and our jobs. That's not really responsible planning. That's not about protecting the province, especially at a time when others want to see us fail. I think about some of the geopolitical adversaries around the world. We simply cannot allow indiscriminate connection to crowd out the necessary growth we're going to need in other sectors, whether that's new housing or clean manufacturing or emerging industries or hospitals, whatever it may be. We've got to make sure we have a national interest imperative that allows us to use those megawatts, use power for social and economic good for the people of Ontario. And so we can't just turn a blind eye to the security and sovereignty of data as well. Canadian data. This is a big issue, especially when data centers can be owned or operated by entities outside our borders. And we are an open for business province, but we want to make sure that we are maximizing the safeguards with respect to Canadian data. And that's why in Ontario, we believe Canadian data should stay in Canada where it's protected, because this is fundamentally about, yes, energy, but it's also about our economic competitiveness. It's about our national resilience and ensuring Ontario's power is used to build Ontario's future, not being diverted by default to whoever lines up first. That's not a plan. And so the plan we're bringing forth to you allows us to put our energy grid first and allows Ontario's electricity grid to remain clean. It's why we're building out nuclear power, the largest of its kind. Investments, large-scale nuclear energy that we're expanding in Port Hope, in Bruce, and of course the first small modular reactor in the G7 we're building at Darlington. But in order to do that, we must protect the assets we currently have. And that's why our government is stepping in. We're stepping up with action that is clear and strategic and grounded in the public interest. And so the response is clear. We will grow strategically and responsibly in a way that protects Ontario's long-term interests and maximizes the economic benefit for Canadians. Just a few weeks ago, we announced Energy for Generations. This is the first integrated energy plan of its kind in any subnational government in the Western world. It's the same spirit behind the integrated energy plan about this announcement today. It's about building the future on our terms, ensuring we have that affordable, reliable, and secure power that the world and the province is going to need, and also to help us win in a digital world. Ontario isn't just open for business. We're ready to lead in one of the fastest growing sectors in the global economy. And data center construction, that market is expected to be $49 billion by 2030. Canada is already a top 10 market. We generate $8 billion in revenue. And with the right investments and the right plan we're bringing forward today, we are well on track to hit the top 5. But we have to ask responsibly. That means prioritizing data centers that drive real value to the province. Job creation, innovation, economic growth, domestic data security. And we know that according to the National Cybersecurity Index, we're already doing well. This is the good to great principle. We want to scale up. We currently sit at second in the world for cybersecurity readiness, but it means we're not just a good place to build, we're a safe, trusted place to operate. And that's very important, particularly for foreign investors that are looking for certainty at a time of a lack of stability in the US or around the world. The message we're sending is powerful. Canada, and Ontario particularly, offers a dependable, secure, future-ready environment for digital infrastructure investment, which is really the basis so much of the tech triangle that is emerging between York Region and KW and right across Ontario. And that's why, as I mentioned, we introduced this plan, the Energy for Generations. We also introduced legislation sort of anchored with it. The legislation is called Protect Ontario by Securing Affordable Energy for Generations Act. This plan, this legislation allows Ontario to control how electricity connection requests are managed. And that starts today with data centers. Under this proposed amendment, large-scale data centers will require government sign-off before being able to connect to the grid, making sure that every connection supports Ontario's bigger picture, jobs, growth, and the security of data. This is about building a grid that powers growth and drive results. As we know, data centers will be prioritized that deliver real, meaningful benefits to both the local communities and to the province's long-term competitiveness. And we're talking about good jobs, securing local data storage, and creating a stronger, more competitive economy. So with this legislation, with this plan, we're shifting to a smarter, more predictable approach, one that really welcomes investments, but aligns with our energy goals and puts Ontario at the front foot in both technology and energy sectors. We're also doing something else. We're protecting your data, Canadian data, and we're making sure that we have the capacity to keep your data here at home, not in a cloud that actually is housed perhaps in China, but here in this province. And doing that is the right move. We're making sure that we're protecting from the misuse or weaker foreign privacy regimes by enhancing investments through the Ontario Energy Board. This is for us. This is for Canada. And as global economic and political trends continue to shift, long-term energy planning isn't just more complex, it becomes critical. But we're ready. We're ready in Ontario with a forward-thinking, coordinated approach, 25-year roadmap, as I mentioned, that integrated energy plan. It aligns our energy policy with the economic and security and innovation that we know is necessary for a strong economy like Ontario's. And we're leading. We'll make sure that Ontario's energy system continues to deliver real results, affordable power for families here in Kitchener and Waterloo, and frankly, right across Ontario, because protecting Ontario means powering Ontario, and powering Ontario means planning for the digital, the industrial, the technological realities of the 21st century, and what will come well beyond that. And that's why we're here, building the grid of the future, a clean grid with urgency and ambition, and we're going to keep pushing forward. Our premier demands, we keep pushing forward. We keep creating jobs, we keep fighting for affordability, we keep opposing higher taxes, we keep diversifying our trade exports, that we are a strong, self-reliant Canadian economy, the strongest in the G7. That is the aspiration of our premier. It is the aspiration of every parliamentarian with us today. Now, I got to give, as I conclude, I want to just give a quick introduction to Sam Oosterhoff. You should know, one of Sam's great passion projects has been building a regime, a policy that puts the national interest first as we manage thousands of megawatts of demand on the grid. This man is largely responsible for the actions we're announcing today, and I'm very grateful to serve with him. So please welcome Sam Oosterhoff. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Lecce. What a beautiful afternoon it is here in Waterloo, and I just have to acknowledge the leadership of the Minister in making today a reality, and also those who have put so much work into this. It really is another new and innovative initiative. You know, this is a particularly important announcement for one of our province's growing major energy-intensive industries. Earlier today, I had the chance to join the MPP for Perth Wellington, Matt Rae, at St. Mary's Cement. We also just came from Maple Leaf Foods in London. These are major, large energy-intensive industries who are growing, and we're seeing that growth in every part of this province. But with that growth, with those expansions, comes the need to plan proactively to ensure that we're able to support the energy-intensive sector in the data space, but also support these new industries who are coming and growing, in many cases, who are expanding their operations here in our province. And that's why we are preparing Ontario's electricity grid to support industries like data centers that will continue to shape the future of our economy for years to come. We're not just thinking about today. We're not just taking short-sighted policy actions. We're taking actions that will continue to unlock more opportunities in this sector. And we know that it's needed because increased demand from data centers is inevitable. I think all of us who have been on the internet recently can tell you that that's more and more becoming a reality with artificial intelligence. But you know, good data centers are also crucial to our national security as much as they are to protecting consumers. When it comes to computing power and storage, they are really crucial to the everyday services we rely on. Everything from the cloud services we might subscribe to, maybe you have your family pictures on those clouds or work emails. It's so important to have security. We need to be strategic in how we manage electricity connection requests to power these data centers. And through this proposed legislation, we're going to be prioritizing and supporting good projects. I've had the privilege of meeting now with a number of people in the data center space, and they've been very clear. There's so many good actors, so many incredible actors, but not all data centers are created equal. We need to bring the data centers that support good paying jobs, innovation, and investment opportunities to our province, and that will benefit the people of Ontario. It's just part of our broader integrated energy plan laid out by Minister Lecce just last month, where through the Energy for Generations plan, we're outlining the steps that we're taking to power continued growth amidst rising demand. We take so for granted flipping on the lights and knowing that everything's going to work. We need to continue to keep that a reality, keep power that is affordable, that is reliable, that is secure, and that is clean. And that plan is one that lays out how we can power not just the industries like St. Mary's Cement that's been here since 1912, but also the industries of the future, looking ahead to 2012. And you think about 2112. I missed 100 years there in the middle, right? We have to think about a plan that will power the industries of the future and maintain also Ontario's competitive advantage. Premier Ford's commitment to ensuring we are the best place in the G7 to live, work, and also to grow a business. Now, in addition to securing more supply and expanding critical infrastructure, we're going to also work to make this grid more flexible and responsive to emerging trends. We can achieve this by planning for sustainable growth in the data center sector as well as in other energy-intensive industries, working together with these partners. Now, how we treat the power needed by data centers today, as was talked about by Minister Lecce, some 6,500 megawatts, that's like 6.5 million homes being added to the grid. It sets the precedent for larger loads to come also in the future from industries like electric vehicles, advanced manufacturing, and more. That's why we're positioning Ontario to say yes to new investments, to say yes to new jobs and new trade opportunities, to pave the way for an even stronger domestic supply chain and to fortify our energy security. Because ultimately, the strength of our energy sector and our ability to deliver clean, reliable, and affordable power when and where it's needed will also pave the way for jobs and for economic success today and for many years to come. And now I'd like to invite someone who knows us too well, who has been working and advocating for his community and for the entire Kitchener-Waterloo region, the MPP for Cambridge, a good friend of mine, MPP Brian Riddell. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Today, our government is taking decisive action to protect Ontario's energy future and support smart economical growth. With rising electrical demand from artificial intelligence and cloud computing, we must ensure our power is fueling that opportunity, not just consumption. That's why we're introducing the Protect Ontario by Securing Affordable Energy for Generations Act. This legislation will ensure data centers connect with our grid only when they need to bring real value, creating high-quality jobs, supporting our economy, and protecting Canadian data. This is great news for Waterloo Region and the City of Cambridge. Our local businesses, especially the advanced manufacturing and tech, rely on affordable, reliable energy. By managing demand and this creates high-impact projects. We're protecting our grid and giving local employers the certainty they need to invest, expand, and hire. I would like now to welcome my friend, MPP Matt Rae, to share a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here in Kitchener-Waterloo and the region of Waterloo for this very important announcement. I want to thank Minister Lecce and Associate Minister Oosterhoff for their leadership at the provincial level in putting forward this piece of legislation, but also their advocacy really bringing, I would argue, Ontario's electricity grid and foresight into the 21st century and beyond, as the Minister mentioned. I also have the distinct pleasure of being the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And we're seeing a lot of change within the housing sector itself. And I recently had an opportunity to visit the Ontario Building Code officials. Very interesting, very passionate group of individuals. Not everyone wants to talk about the building code. It is a very large document for those that are aware of it. But how we can digitize that, how we can use AI in building the homes, the hospitals, and the schools that our government is investing in and building across Ontario. But we need to ensure that our data is secure and protected. And Minister Lecce and Minister Oosterhoff and their entire team has proposed a piece of legislation that will do just that, ensuring that we're there securing that vital data, the structures that we live and go to work in every day. And I also have the pleasure of being an MPP as MPP Rydzinski as well for a very agriculture-centered riding. Agriculture and artificial intelligence are coming together, but we don't want to see nefarious actors such as China getting access to very important, the food literally we are growing in our beautiful province, and ensuring that remains locally. And so I really want to commend them and thank them for their leadership and bringing this forward today and their work in the Legislative Assembly to ensure that we're protecting Ontario but also building Ontario for decades to come. Thank you, everyone, and now I'm going to turn it back to Minister Lecce for questions and final remarks. Thanks.
We will now open the floor to questions from the media. As a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up. We will start with our first reporter. Please state your name and outlet to the mic.
Karis Mapp, CTV News. Welcome, Minister Lecce, to
Thank
Waterloo
you.
Region.
Thank you.
Obviously, here at Communitech, a Waterloo hub for the province. Can you tell me why it was important to have this announcement here and how it's going to affect, local companies and employees in this area?
Well, this is one of the centers of excellence when it comes to innovation and clean growth. We have one of the cleanest electricity grids on Earth. We have a plan to get to near net zero by increasing nuclear and hydroelectric power. And I think it's positive that we profile the successes of our regions and our province. And there's a lot of mutual alignment. They need more power, more clean power, and we have a plan to produce power for the next 25 years. We're one of the rare provinces or governments really in the industrialized world that has a 25-year roadmap for energy security. And when I spoke with the chair of the region and local mayors, as well as the local members from this community, both Mike Harris, Jess Dixon, and of course Brian Riddell, all of whom have made clear we got to get on with building more generation and more transmission so that we're always saying yes to job-creating investment in the region. And given that this community is going to 40% population increase in KW alone by 2050, explosive industrial growth, the time is now to think ahead, plan ahead. There's a virtue for the first time that we think about our children's generation opposed to scrambling with last minute ad hocery that the last government respectfully excelled in. We want to be a bit different, and so I think working with our municipal partners, working with the local MPPs, and taking this approach and provincializing it, we have a provincial plan that gives us that competitive advantage in Canada. The other element is you have 3 large data centers before working with the system planner today with your utility. Those 3 data centers in Kitchener-Waterloo region represent 540 megawatts of power. That's like 2 small modular reactors of power alone. That's just for KW. Think of every other region of Ontario that has their own equivalents. So I guess the reason why this plan is important and why it's relevant to this region is we're going to help plan and build the housing, the infrastructure, the hospitals, and the economy of tomorrow by protecting power for the greatest return on investment.
Perfect. And then my follow-up, just for the everyday person who may hear about this announcement, how does this impact them? Will they have to reduce how much energy they're using in their homes or anything like that at all?
I think for families in Ontario, why this matters is because it puts an economic lens and an affordability lens on the power we generate. We're not a non-stop shop, a 24/7 charity for the world's power needs. We want to put a national interest imperative. What is going to be in the interests of Canadian everyday families who pay the bills? How do we return a good ROI, good return on investment for their rate dollars? And so this plan actually manages the risks and maximizes the benefits. So for a lot of families, if we didn't have this policy, I think bills would go up. And remember, just a decade ago, when we got elected in 2018, just shy of a decade, energy rates were the highest on the continent. We paid 400% more. The government of that, the last government increased hydro rates because of last-minute planning and because of poor decisions that led to high rates. And so why this matters is we're thinking ahead, we're building ahead, we're taking time to get it right, and we have a 25-year horizon to keep energy bills low. And I think that the virtue here is affordable power, clean power, reliable power that's being used for the greatest return on investment for the people of Kitchener-Waterloo. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello there. Asad Chishti, CBC News.
Thank you.
My first question is just around, you've mentioned in this announcement that you're prioritizing data centers. Mm-hmm. Is there some sector or some aspect that you're deprioritizing while you're prioritizing data centers?
No, I mean, we're open to all data center proposals that come to the ministry, but what's going to change is that projects that come to us that prioritize or that secure their data in Canada are the ones that get prioritization. We want to ensure that those that come before us, that we put first in the queue, the projects, not just that happen to, based on a calendar, come before the ministry, but based on objective criteria, like where's the power stored, who's the builder, is it Canadian Materials, is there a clear economic investment for this massive amount of power that has to be generated and then transmitted to the company. So it's not about declining, really, it's actually about just creating a clear rules of engagement for the market, that we want to attract investment, but there's got to be a clear value when it comes to our economy, when it comes to affordability, when it comes to the sovereignty of our data, because I think it's clear we can't rely on, unfortunately, many of our historic allies, where during the pandemic, I think about PPE being denied exports from the US. I mean, during a life-saving mission, a time where we would think we can come together, even then we couldn't rely on our closest trading partner. So this is a wake-up call. We hear it, we're getting ahead of the curve, and we're simply putting Canada's interest first.
Thank you. Follow-up question is, in regards to coming up with this plan, as well as the energy plan that you laid out recently, have you been having these conversations and research outside of Ontario jurisdictions?
I'm going to turn this over to Sam because he's been leading the consultation, but I could tell you most jurisdictions don't have a policy, which is a challenge. We're trying to give ourselves a differentiating advantage by having a policy, thinking ahead, and as I mentioned, building for the future. But I'll turn it over to Samuel.
Yeah, thank you. And there are other jurisdictions in North America, but specifically in Canada, Quebec and Manitoba and BC come to mind. And Quebec's, is perhaps a really good example of why this is so necessary. I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier in the conversations we've been having with data center builders and brokers who are, in many cases, providing the foundational services that the startups at a place like Communitech and in the area around here would rely on. They're providing really important cloud-based services. They're providing computing power. They have latency requirements. They're doing really good work. But then you look at what happened in Quebec a few years ago, where Bitcoin mines essentially set up shop and flooded whole areas where, instead of them being able to provide the computational capacity for innovation and productivity gains, they were just plugging into cheap power, sucking up all the juice out of a particular area to mine Bitcoin for investors who knows where, crypto bros. And what ended up happening as a result was they were losing control of their capacity to attract new investment. So we're being proactive. We're saying we recognize there's a huge value to good data centers that, again, provide that base foundational support, but we can't have actors sometimes opaque without clarity of where they're coming from, what the data centers are doing, foreign actors, as was mentioned, from not necessarily the friendliest states in some situations, and we need to be able to be responsive. So this is absolutely both based on those sorts of examples, but also the feedback we've heard from the energy sector more broadly, who say, and frankly, new loads looking to come to Ontario, saying we're looking at an investment, but we want to ensure that there's clarity and certainty about the power available.
And just, I wouldn't mind turning it over to the chair, because we have to pay homage when we're in her region by, first off, thanking her for letting us in, but also I think her perspective is important as a leader at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. This has been a long-standing issue that's been coming up. How do we use power for good? So, Chair, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you very much for this generous opportunity. I would have to tell you, with the uncertainty in the United States, I think every level of government, including the region and municipal governments, have said, what can we do? And really, the tools that we need are now being provided by the province, and I commend them, because it's putting Canadian interests first. It's providing a framework to navigate forward, but it's also looking for new opportunities. So I think the combination of surety in moving forward, as well as protecting Canadian interests, is absolutely great news for a region like Waterloo, who was number 4 on the list of areas or regions that would be impacted by the tariffs. So really commend the provincial government for this kind of leadership.
Okay.
That concludes today's press conference. Thank you for everyone coming.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.